The BBC's role as a trusted source of information in an era of so-called fake news is more important than ever, says a senior director at that broadcaster. But just as he said that, it's been accused of that very thing, as Polly Boyker reports.
You've got Jeremy Corbyn, who's the leader of the opposition Labour Party here. He sat on the BBC breakfast sofa being interviewed, what is primetime TV, really. And he's asked a question about whether or not he's going to resign, as per the rumours swirling around Westminster at the moment. And this is his response. Take a listen.
There's a story going about that you've set a date for when you're going to quit as Labour leader.
That's in the ImadeItUpYesterday.com.
You've not considered for a moment whether you as leader are damaging the party's
I'm really
chance.
surprised the BBC is reporting fake news.
Well,
there is no news.
What I'd like...
And despite being an institution and so culturally ingrained here, the BBC's been at the receiving end, really, of allegations of bias on quite a few issues in recent years. Take, for example, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There have been numerous and really quite large protests outside of the BBC's headquarters in recent years over their coverage of the Israeli-Arab conflict, because many people accuse the BBC of being too pro-Israeli. Similarly, back in 2014, there were protests over the BBC's coverage of the Scottish referendum. Many of those who wanted Scotland to go it alone, to become an independent country, said that they thought that the BBC's coverage was too skewed towards the pro-union stance. And there are reports commissioned by the BBC themselves which admit that the organisation was a little bit late in reflecting widespread public concerns about things like immigration to the UK, and they've also been accused of being too pro-EU in recent years. But this whole issue, this idea of fake news, has really taken hold at the moment. It's sort of like the bogeyman in the media at the moment. Everyone and their brother is accusing each other of peddling it, and you've got this situation where the mainstream media have kind of created this concern about fake news, and now they're at the receiving end of accusations of it themselves.
Yeah, Polly Boyker in London there. Meantime, Facebook and Google have launched an offensive against so-called fake news in the lead-up to the French presidential election in April. That initiative comes after the tech giants were criticised for not doing enough to combat false info during the US presidential campaign. There are currently 17 media organisations on the checkers list then. They'd be going through online content to find and debunk fake stories and hoaxes. However, not all of those fact checkers have got a spotless record themselves when it comes to sticking strictly to the facts themselves. For instance, BuzzFeed recently came under fire for publishing a story with, quote, explosive but unverified compromising info about President Trump. The decision of that outlet to publish the dossier was widely questioned by the mainstream media, among others. Then another partner, Bellingcat, best known for analysing public data relating to the downing of Flight MH17 in eastern Ukraine. However, the founder of a research service used by Bellingcat described their finding as an example of how not to do forensic analysis. And then there's the AFP, Associated France Press news agency, also among the fact checkers. It had to correct its own story that implied that Russia was tampering with the voting process in the US election. We discussed this plan to filter news with the help of other media organisations with legal analyst Lionel.
This is the most dangerous thing that you could possibly do. You're going to let Facebook or Google or whoever determine what's real. What you're doing is you're allowing a third party, and by the way, censorship does not have to be the government, but you're allowing somebody to act as a filter between you and the truth. It's insane. This isn't censorship. Censorship means changing a few words. This is blocking you from the news, keeping the news from you. This is worse than censorship.
Meantime, Facebook's already launched a similar initiative in the States. We asked New Yorkers if they think it will help stop this spread of so-called fake news.
Have you heard about the fake news controversy?
Of course. Everybody accuses everybody else of fake news, but I tend to associate most of it with the mainstream media. Instead of giving you what you would call delivering news like reporting, they kind of embellish it so that it meets their political objectives instead of doing what a reporter is supposed to do.
It's not anything I've heard, I've just observed. Everything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth is a lie.
Donald Trump is responsible, and so is Flynn. for much of the fake news.
I think it's ridiculous. A lot of the stuff out there is, not the truth, and they're putting things out and they're getting misconstrued.
I mean, if people had better critical thinking skills, you think they'd be able to see through it. So I think there's a lot of deeper problems going on than just that people are posting whenever they want.
Facebook has just come out with this new thing where they want to actually label news agencies that they don't like as being quote-unquote fake news. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't, but it sounds like a good idea. It sounds like things should be fact-checked.
One side sees something as news and the other side is exposed to it and goes, this isn't anything close to what we believe, and vice versa. So I think you have on both sides an issue. I don't know how you can really regulate it.
I think that's got to be up to you. I mean, listen, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, do you want to buy Starbucks? I'll give it to you for $500. Would you buy it? You probably wouldn't.
I don't trust any of it at all. No one can tell you what you should believe and what you shouldn't.
Facebook can do whatever they want, and if you don't like what Facebook's telling you about their information, then just don't go on Facebook.